Hello, my name is Vera Kugukanko, and today's presentation is all about poverty in contemporary Britain. As an introduction, we can say that poverty, what is poverty? Poverty, at a glance, is a state or condition in which an individual lacks the financial resources and essential for a basic standard of living. There are actually three definitions of poverty in general application, but our focus here will be on two, which are absolute poverty and relative poverty. This is our presentation content. In this presentation, we talk about an evaluation of absolute and relative definition of poverty, then an explanation of how poverty has changed in Britain. Then to finish, we talk about an analysis of different methods of measuring poverty. An evaluation of absolute and relative definition of poverty. Absolute poverty refers to a level of poverty where people struggle to meet daily needs, such as food, shelter, sanitation, and health care. People in absolute poverty are far below the poverty line, according to the PSE, the Poverty in Social Exclusion, and the UK government as well. It concerns households with income below 60% of the average. The sad point in this is that it's affecting about 1.4 million children in the UK, with half of this number having at least a parent working. People and households in this category remain poor even if the country economy gets better and prosper. On the contrary, relative poverty concerns households receiving 50% less than the standard household income. The household affected by relative poverty have just enough money for the basic. They are caged in a low income bracket. The hope here is that relative poverty can change for better regarding of the growth of the country economy. In absolute poverty, the state of household doesn't and almost never change regardless of the economic growth. These occur mostly in non-developed countries. In opposition, the criteria of household in relative poverty can change with economic growth. This concerns mostly developed countries like Britain. Now we talk about an explanation of how poverty has changed in Britain since the 20th century until now. A survey of British history since the 20th century lead to the appalling and very surprising conclusion that poverty and its causes are quite the same now as they were in 1900. Economic system changes, urbanization, and industrialization are the result of development and evolution of nations, including Britain. Those factors largely contributed to the advancement of the economy. These rapid changes in the 18th and 19th century, lead to negative outcomes such as child labor, worker abuse, and difficult working conditions. Little changes do occur later in the 20th century through social reform movement and welfare programs in view to better living conditions and tackle poverty. The 21st century saw a great effort made to determine poverty causes. Forward to 2017 and 2018, almost 14.3 million of people in the UK live in poverty, with unfortunately 4.6 million being children. Is a very sad reality. It is very vital to note that poverty not only touches people without employment, Do you know in the UK, 4 million workers actually live in poverty? It is noticeable nowadays through the increasing number of people and family relying on food banks all around the country. Another thing is the paysage of the street being painted with rough slipper. Like everywhere in the UK now, especially in the big city like London and Manchester, you cannot go to the city without see a lot of people, unfortunately, sleeping on the street and begging for money. Those are the visual effect of poverty in Britain, in the country. To finish our presentation, we talk about an analysis of the different methods of measuring poverty. Two names to remember here are Charles Booth, 1814 and 1916, and Sibum Rowntree between 1871 and 1954. Both men are affluent businessmen who pushed the government to accept the failure on poverty instead of justifying it on people's sloth, laziness, and sobriety. After intensive researches in East London, Booth concluded that poverty needed to be measured around a poverty line, which is an income starting point or required to afford basic needs such as feeding and inevitable spending. At the other side, Sibum Rowntree conducted a study in York on 46,000 people between 1897 and 1898. He also came to the conclusion that poverty need to be determined around the poverty line. A certain amount of income was necessary for healthy diet, especially to eat well. At least they determined that at least a family or individual household to eat well, they need to be at least on the on the poverty line. It specified that people in primary poverty couldn't afford essential needs, and those in secondary poverty have enough money but squander it on unnecessary things like entertainment. But both men deduced that poverty was a result of unwellness, unemployment, seniority, or poor pay. Nowadays, as 2025, measurement of poverty in UK are HBAY, standing for household 60% below average income. It takes into account the household overall income. The persistent poverty concern household below the poverty line for 2 of the 3 past year. And another measure is absolute low income that set a threshold as a part of the UK median income in a peculiar year and can only change if inflation does. Moreover, and to be more specific, there are 2 different measures of poverty in the UK actually used by the government. The first one is absolute poverty, that measures the current number of people who can afford a basic standard of living. In this category, people have 60% less money than the average household. The second measure is relative poverty, being the amount of people being with income below 60% of the median as we are talking today. The relative approach is likely to be used by the government because it uses current data and statistics of the country. Finally, it is necessary to mention the debate about whether the development of a new measure of poverty in the UK will occur. The aim will be to use the research from the SMC, standing for Social Metric Commission, that we use household detail, accounting for difference of cost, saving, childcare, just to cite few. Another point not to ignore is that the Department Work of Pension, DWP, have put in place a new measure called BAR, B-A-R, below average resources, that use the frame suggested by the SMC. I thank you very much to listen for my presentation today. My name is Vera Kukukanko.